Hello, Dr. Karen Can. Welcome to another edition of the Spiritual Medicine Digest. And I'm going to be perfectly transparent and forthright right now. This is a red pilling video. So yes, I've labeled it the end of the matrix. So if you prefer not to be red pilled, you probably should just, and that is completely fine. You have that choice. So with that disclaimer, let's start. Okay, so we're going to start with some alternate news. Why? Because I realize that some people in my community, including those close to me, have no idea of what's going on in the world. And I used to be one of those. And I'm not saying that I know everything that's going on in the world. Absolutely not. But at least I know when and where I am ignorant and when I'm not ignorant of what's going on in the world. One place where I feel that I have some degree of expertise is as a medical doctor. And one of the memes I wanted to post up, which I have not yet, and I may not because I might piss some people off, is a post that says, I'm a medical doctor. I'm a holistic medical doctor. I was top 10 in my class. I taught medical students and residents at UCLA in Los Angeles, California, as an assistant professor. I was also the chair of the Evidence-Based Medicine Task Force. So we taught medical students and residents how to critically evaluate studies. I also have about 10,000 people who actively seek my guidance. And I have approximately probably less than half a dozen of people that I personally know, friends and family, who have asked me any advice or my opinion about the vaccinations, about the jab. And I think that's pretty curious. Yeah. But we're actually not going to be talking about the jab today, not so much. But I did red pill a friend of mine who was the owner of a certain store that I do frequent because I do wish to support my local business. And she told me that their business had decided to keep the mandatory mask mandates going, even though, at least in New York State, by law, they do not have to anymore. They certainly didn't want to be asking everybody, did you get vaccinated? Did you get vaccinated? Yeah, so they definitely didn't want to do that. And so I guess I kind of went, bleh. Usually I'm pretty good about being reserved, okay? But today, I don't know whether it was because I just saw a bunch of kids on the side of the road that were like 3-4 years old wearing masks outdoors that triggered me, but I admit I am human and I got triggered. So this friend of mine did get a mouthful of various different things that I said, and she was one of the most tolerant people that I know. So she really did a good job, just kind of listening. And I did apologize to her. That I said, I'm sorry, I totally red pilled you, and you didn't ask for that, and I apologize for the energy of how I said things. And she was very understanding. Let's put it that way. Of course, the guy behind me in line was just shaking his head the whole time, according to my husband, right? My husband, we are both red pilled, so he wasn't too happy about that. But so what is the news that people don't know about? Well, there's a lot, but let's stick with just recent news. Yeah, that's recent news. So let's start with Oregon. So Oregon has put up a couple of bills. And if they become law, it's really going to be very interesting. The first is that they are going to get rid of livestock. So that you cannot, big farm, little farm, whatever, you cannot raise livestock. You cannot sell livestock. That would definitely devastate that part of the industry, especially those that are small farmers, right? That are, very, very important. And let's put it this way. You either pay the farmer or you pay the pharmacist. And I much rather prefer paying the farmer. Now, this I'm not going to get into should people be vegan or not vegan or eating meat and the energy of meat. Okay, we're not talking about that right now. Okay, um, there are pros and cons for both sides of the story, and I think for some people, eating meat is necessary for their human bodies, at least for now, to repair whatever they need to repair. And I think I say like I'm a wanna be vegan in a way, and but not quite there yet. And so I'm not gonna label good, bad, whatever. Okay, so this isn't about veganism versus paleo versus any of that. We're not talking about that. But what we're talking about is these bills coming into place that are curious, and you wonder what is the real motive behind it. The other bill in Oregon up for grabs is the bill to regulate energy healing practitioners. That would affect about 200 different modalities. It would also affect life coaches and hypnotists. So we'd like to regulate them, have them, pay a fee and have these background checks and be registered and all that kind of stuff. And on one hand, one could argue, well, gee, yeah, don't you want the public to be safe, right? And on the other hand, it really feels like some interesting control. Certainly energy healing practitioners that are doing face-to-face work would be under the auspices of this new law in case that it passed. So you may not know about those things. And getting back to the beef, what's really interesting is Bill Gates is now the biggest owner of farmland in America. If you didn't know that, that's important to know. And what's really interesting, he also has a financial, vested interest in the Impossible Burger, which is a plant-based burger. And in his recent book, talked about climate change, which apparently, according to the conspiracy theorists, is one of the next things to make you scared. Okay, purposefully, is talk about climate change. And even the guy, the CNN executive that got ousted by James O'Keefe from Project Veritas. I mean, he had like a secret camera and took video of the executives just literally telling them like that, fear sells, and next is, I think we're going to go with climate change. The COVID thing is kind of old, so we want people to get riled up again. So yeah, so be prepared for climate change, fear-based propaganda. So here's the thing: is that take a look at the Impossible Burger. Okay, take a look at what is in it. Actually, let me show you. Okay, let me show you. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Here we go. Okay, now this is not the Impossible Burger. Actually, I'm not sure which burger this is, but plant-based burgers, very, very similar. One of the things they do use is soy. 90 or more % of soy in America is genetically modified. And what does that mean? Well, that means that, in this case, that they can be, sprayed with glyphosate, which is Roundup, and same thing with corn. Most of the corn in America that is sold, often in processed foods, are also genetically modified. So they can be sprayed with Roundup, and the corn doesn't die, but the bugs do. Okay. So a lot of our foods have glyphosate in it already. So here we have on the left the plant-based lab-created beef patty made with water, soy protein. Remember what I just talked about. And we've got methylcellulose, yeast extract, cultured dextrose, food starch. Okay, that's usually corn, and that usually is genetically modified as well. Leg hemoglobin. Okay, so this could be an Impossible Burger. So leg hemoglobin was something that Bill Gates, there were some folks that were very concerned about this and took it to court. But the FDA ruling on allowing this in our food just passed easily. And they actually did not, the people that did the research did not test the mice as long as they should have to make sure that it was quote unquote safe. So they cut corners in their testing, but yet it still passed through the FDA. And just remember that the people that pay the FDA are the pharmaceutical and agribusiness companies. So yes, there's some taxpayers' dollars there as well, but they do pay quite a bit of their salaries. So there could be some, conflict of interest there. So what else is there? Okay, so we got salt, we got mixed tocopherols, which is basically vitamin E, some more soy protein. Then they got to add in some vitamins, minerals, because it's really deficient of any nutrition at all, really, for the end of that, right? So the lead hemoglobin is there to mimic the soy-based extraction, I believe, is to mimic the taste of beef. Whereas, there are good animal husbandry practices. There are good livestock practices, and then there are not so good ones. And the not so good ones are those big factory farms, right? And do they contribute to greenhouse gases? Probably to some extent. But is all of the planets heating up? Yeah, we're not the only ones. So I don't think there's any beef on Mars um, causing this problem, but that's the narrative. So there's the fake meat. And by the way, Weston A. Price, who's been a leader in nutrition for many, many decades, since Weston A. Price in the 30s, found that when people eat real food and not processed food, that they had nice wide jaws, all their teeth fit into their mouths. They didn't have depression, they didn't have mental illness, they didn't have chronic diseases, they didn't have cancer. But as soon as they started eating processed foods and some of the stuff that we take for granted that are on the shelves, packaged, in bags, bottles, etc., within one generation, degeneration was found and chronic disease started. So that's amazing work, and people have continued it for many, many decades, his work from the 30s. So Weston A. Price recently got deplatformed from Facebook. Yep. Talking about good nutrition. What does that tell you? Okay, well, let's news. Okay, so let's see what else have we got here. I do believe. Okay, so that was on my Facebook post, and I actually do Instagram quite a bit. Oh, well, we'll talk about the fake alien invasion in a moment. Yeah. Okay. So their fake meat company, co-founded by Bill Gates, wins court ruling. So that's what we talked about earlier. So that like hemoglobin is now introduced into our food chain. Some New York news now. So we talked about Oregon. So New York news. There is a bill that is going to force doctors to tell the state who is and is not vaccinated through their records. In the past, it has been completely voluntary, and now they're trying to make them do that. And it's sort of like, if you said, well, we want all HIV people to be registered with the state, right? There'd be like an uproar, or everyone that's ever had chlamydia or something like that, right? Like it's like where's your privacy, right? But for vaccines, people seem to like goes out the window. So that is up for grabs in New York State. The other one is this one's interesting. This bill allows the governor to arrest and imprison people during health emergencies, including, potentially putting unvaccinated people into camps, or for other reasons putting them into camps because one person feels that it is for the best interest of all. So these are definitely draconian type bills that I am not in support of, and I do live in New York State. So that's kind of the news from New York State. Now let's go to Canada for a little bit. So in Canada, they are having almost more problems than we are here in the United States and around the world. Yeah. I think that the Justin Trudeau, who's the Canadian version of executive orders, there's some things that have gone down. But as I have friends in multiple different provinces, we have issues in Montreal, we have issues in Toronto, which is in Ontario, even Manitoba, Alberta, and even British Columbia. So there's just very few. I'm not hearing too much about the East Coast. Way in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and etc. But it's pretty interesting what's going on there. So there have been a lot of police crackdowns on masking and gathering and things like that. A lot of fines going on, and what was in the news, not in mainstream news, of course, is that in Calgary, a pastor, after opening church service, which apparently was against the mandate to open church service, they arrested him afterwards. And so after he was bailed out, there was an interview with him, and he shared that there was a police helicopter that followed him all the way back to the church. And he's like, for what? To watch how I feed the hungry? Like, what a waste of taxpayers' dollars, right? And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with that, right? So why are we being shown this? I mean, the people that know anyway, if you watch mainstream news, you won't see anything. Because it's like, why can people go to big box stores, right? And there's like hundreds of people at the store, but it's not okay for a pastor to give service in a church. That doesn't really make sense to me, right? Like, why can you go to an airport, right, where there's lots and lots of people crammed into a plane? Yes, you may have a mask on, but you are definitely not 6 feet apart, and you're allowed to dine in at the airport because you can't go outside. But then people outside can't dine in because they're not at an airport. Like, does the coronavirus use to infect more people outside the airport? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, right? So I totally understand and support this pastor who said, look, our religious freedom and our freedom to work, to worship, to pray together and in community is really important, especially during this really difficult time. And so, yeah, was he kind of martyred in that way in terms of getting arrested, and it was filmed and everything like that? Maybe it's a wake up pill for the rest of us. But for me, that was not okay. That was not okay. So let's talk about the CDC now. So the CDC has had interesting things it's doing over the last year and a half or so. I mean, it's probably been doing other interesting things. But one is a change of definition and changing the rules partway through. So, for example, the PCR test, which is polymerase chain reaction test, looks for tiny pieces of genetic material, then it amplifies it multiple times so you can detect it. And that is how they are diagnosing COVID. Now, here's the thing. If you are a very good doctor, okay, how you make a diagnosis is you do not rely on a test, especially a test that has not been through rigorous study to be both sensitive and specific if you're using it for screening purposes. Screening purposes means the person does not have symptoms. How you diagnose COVID is you look at the symptomatology, you look at the story and the history, and you do a physical exam. Yeah, a physical exam, folks. You actually touch people. That's how you diagnose things in medicine. So interestingly, when you do the PCR test, and it is allowed to run, 30, 40 cycles, okay? So it's amplifying this many times. There are more and more positives. Wow. And when you dial that back down, there's less positives. Well, the consensus, not that there's really a consensus, but for the experts, that if you're going to use this test, which is not a good test, by the way, the guy who invented the test, Kerry Mullins, he suddenly died right before the pandemic, right? And he was, quoted as saying, "This is not a test. Don't use it for a test. Please don't use it as a test." Okay, and then he suddenly died conveniently. So, yeah. So if the PCR test is done at, say, 30 cycles or 25 to 30 cycles, then you have much less false positives. But if you do it over that, there's a lot of false positives. So more people look like they are sick, but they're not. That's why people quit. It's a case-demic, not a pandemic. Case-demic meaning that you're considering a positive COVID test as a case. But to be honest, a case is actually someone with symptoms. You're not supposed to call people without symptoms a case. If you are going to be really accurate, it'd be a positive PCR test person. Okay, so the CDC, back to CDC. So the CDC made some changes soon after the Biden inauguration to those doing the testing, the test kits, etc. Run them as, maybe we shouldn't, maybe turn it down, and I'm like, well, that's interesting timing. Around the time the vaccine has been out for a little bit, right? So one could argue, if you're a conspiracy theorist or realist, that the testing threshold changes would make it look like the vaccine's working. But gosh darn it, it's not working the way they want it to, because 60% of people who are COVID positive, especially those that are in the hospital and are dying, actually got vaccinated fully. It's working quite the way. I don't know if they planned this, but if they planned it, they didn't plan it very well. Okay. Because there's plenty of people getting hospitalized and dying that are fully vaccinated. All right. So that's one real change the CDC kind of behind the scenes did. The other one, and it's funny because Dr. Mercola and others have caught these things, right? They have a team of people just delving into the research, and most of us clinicians just don't have time to do that kind of stuff. And so I really, really appreciate all these people all over the world doing this research and kind of distilling it down. And you can take a look at their articles, see if it resonates with you. Anyway, so the CDC also changed the definition of herd immunity. Herd immunity for, gosh, decades, 50, 60, whatever years, 70, more than that, has not ever been about vaccines. It's been about if enough people, okay, have the disease or the infection, you get herd immunity, which means that you could, like, you won't get sick from it. I'm simplifying, but you won't get sick from it anymore because almost everybody's seen it, right? It's like the common cold. Now, common cold keeps changing, right? But it's like that herd immunity to that particular organism occurs when enough people have gotten it. And that's what they did in Sweden, right? Now, Sweden did have excess deaths over the year before, especially if they're elderly. Absolutely. But they did not have mandatory lockdowns or mandatory masking. They did people to say, hey, do what you think is right, right? But they were very loose about these things. They came into great criticism because of that. But if you look at some of the other countries around them, they had even more excess deaths with lockdowns, with mandatory masking. So you're like, okay, right. So Sweden did not ruin their economy like so many other countries did. And CDC changed the rules now to say herd immunity comes from vaccinations. What? Okay, wait a second. How are you allowed to change that definition? Okay. First of all, you're not a medical doctor. Second of all, did you consult with anyone? The public? Did you consult with, the medical? I mean, granted, in Nazi Germany, all the medical professionals were complicit, okay, in the whole genocide thing. At least they didn't document a single one that stood out, okay? I understand it. But it's like, you can't change these things without some sort of public forum, without some sort of feedback from the people who are taking care of the actual people. So the people that are making the rules haven't even cared for a single COVID patient, right? The people making the rules have not cared for or treated successfully, even or unsuccessfully, a COVID patient. And yet they're telling everybody else what to do. Does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. This is a bit of a rant if you didn't figure that already. So they're changing the definition of herd immunity to, if enough people get vaccinated, you get herd immunity. Well, that's bullshit, because that's not the definition of herd immunity. They made it up. Yeah. Okay, so what else did the CDC change recently? Oh, this is a good one. Did you get this one? Okay, so they were like, oh, wait, okay, we're going to stop counting the people that are COVID positive after the vaccination. So we're just going to only count COVID cases. Breakthrough cases, breakthrough meaning they had the full vaccination series and they still got COVID, supposedly due to the stupid PCR test. But anyway, so we're only going to count cases when they are hospitalized or if they die. Okay. Is it that bad that they changed the definition? Maybe not. But let's compare apples to apples. Did they change the definition for the unvaccinated? No, they didn't. So if you even have some degree of grade 8 math, grade 7, grade 6, okay, math, you would be like, wait a second. So you're changing the rules for this one. So you can't really compare unvaccinated to vaccinated with their COVID, cases, because the unvaccinated is going to show a much higher caseload because you're including all the ones that don't go into the hospital and don't die, and you're only including caseloads for the vaccinated of those that are hospitalized and dead. Well, that's a way to mess up the numbers, isn't it? And we're allowing this stuff, people. Yeah, that is ridiculous. It really is. Okay. Well, let's talk about India a little bit. So let's see if I can find that for you. Let's take a look at, well, we can take a look at my Instagram, I suppose, because I have it in here. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Still with me? Some of you are. All right. Well, I did get trolled on this post, of course. And the funny thing is, on the post, I say, look, correlation is not causation. Just because there's a correlation of ivermectin introduced across India to treat COVID, the COVID cases go down. That looks very promising, right? You can't actually make a causation statement until you do some studies, which have been done. But we're not talking about that right now, okay? We're talking about India. Okay. So here we go in the timeline. The COVID vaccine rollout begins and it ramps up. And oh dear, COVID cases going up. Happens to correlate, not cause, correlate with the vaccine rollout. Well, that's inconvenient. Yeah. So here's the thing, the title of this meme, this is not my meme, it's from Vaccine Choice Canada. They're doing some great work there. Is India seeing a wave of death and injuries following COVID-19 shots? It's a question, it's not a statement. And this is a correlation. So I say right in here, correlation does not mean causation. So this isn't proof, okay? But it does make you think. And here's the thing, many of the governmental policies all around the world are based on less scientific proof than this. Yeah, less. I've not seen a single convincing study that cloth, surgical, or any type of mask used in the community is helpful for preventing illness. If you have it, you share it. But there are quite a few convincing studies that show they're completely useless. So, and when you talk about when you talk to the people who are industrial hygienists, their profession is all about PPEs and masks, and they know every type, and they teach the doctors what to do in the hospital and things like that. Some of them have been speaking out, they have been censored. They don't want people to know the information. All right, well, let's talk about Australia. Okay, well, Australia is interesting because they have, well, actually, we talked about New York, so let's talk about Australia. Let's see if I can find that post. So Australia is interesting because they call the COVID-19 vaccination a poison. Things as a poison, apparently. Oh, did they get rid of that one? Oh, maybe they did. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Okay, here is some Freedom Rally stuff. That is some really positive stuff here. So we'll give you a break from the red pill for a moment. Yeah, so there were some freedom rallies all over the world, May 15th. Millions of people from around the world, including police, doctors, and nurses speak out, and lawyers as well. And so that was amazing. And what I think is really funny, which of course I didn't continue the argument with my dad, but he's like, it's just you and a few disgruntled people that think this, crazy ideas, conspiracy ideas, right? I'm like, you mean me and a few million disgruntled people? My goodness. All right. So yeah, so I think that let's see if, oh wow, that's interesting. Okay, some of it's been blocked. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Here it is. Yeah. So if you go to the Australian government website, wa.gov.au, you will see this, unless we changed it since we documented it. this is an instrument of authorization to supply or administer a poison, SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, right? So I'm like, do the Aussies actually name things different? So here's my friend Cassie says, no, poison is what it is worldwide, no difference here in Australia. She's from Australia. And Naomi, who's a naturopath, another naturopath in Australia, says, nope, it's a poison legally administered. Okay, no, she says something about sheeple, so we don't talk about that. And here, Allison, who is a family member of mine, says poison is legally defined term in Australia. And it refers to everything over-the-counter medications and everything like that, right? But I think it's so interesting that they call it a poison. Interesting. Okay, let's go back to Canada for a little bit. Canada's has a province, Manitoba. So Manitoba's one of the chief microbiologists showed a 56% of the PCR positive tests were actually non-infective or non-infectious. So what you can do is when you get a positive PCR test, you can take that swab and you can, basically culture it and see if it cultures anything, right? And if it doesn't, that means they're not infective, but yet we're still using this silly test. In Ontario, Canada, getting some geography lessons here. The College of Physicians and Surgeons, which I was under previously as a Canadian physician, created a rule prohibiting doctors from criticizing lockdowns. So this is a way to control the doctor narrative. So obviously they wanted to control something that was happening. And so I think kudos to some of the Canadian doctors and nurses, by the way, one of my friends speaking out, because they're having to put these rules in. However, it must have been too draconian because less than a week later, they backed down. There must have been quite a bit of backlash from that. Because you know what? No one's ever showed that lockdowns work either. No, and actually there's plenty of data now that shows that they're actually harmful. But some people could have told you that previously, but people didn't believe it. All right, what other red pill news here? Yeah, so we talked about the millions turning out worldwide for World Freedom Rallies is continuing to happen. We have, a wonderful German lawyer, who is getting together all this data and evidence about this whole COVID pandemic being crimes against humanity. So more power to him. That is super, super awesome because we do need all of our professionals and non-professionals really to really speak out against injustice. And as I was red pilling my friend today, she was talking about how she's trying to make her customers feel comfortable. And I get that, I don't own her business. She owns her business. I shouldn't dictate to her how she should run her business, right? I told her that, obviously she knows where I stand on things now. And we are one of the best customers that they have, by the way. And I said, well, I feel how I feel and I speak how I speak because it's not about making people comfortable. It's saving humanity. That is part of my job. That is my job, So I'm looking at the big picture here. Yeah, some people might get upset. They might not come back to the store because, they don't feel comfortable. People don't have their masks on, right? I'm looking at the big picture. This is all about control. And it is nearing the time, the end of the matrix. So you either get red pill now or later. And when it's later, there's a lot of trauma there, right? We're trying to heal that trauma little by little as these little truths come out. And theoretically, it should be a little easier. So sometimes the good guys are saying that we do need to show you, the people, what's really going on until you can't stand it anymore, until you get so controlled, so, depressed, oppressed, that even the people that would be the most sheeple of them all will rise up and go, no, 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 no. No, that's it, right? But it's a tough one. It's a tough one. It really is. Now that they've approved, the vax for children and the studies And you know, the teenagers, and yes, there've been some deaths since then, but um, yeah, you know, some people are making their voices heard even louder now because now, and Rocco Galati, who is from Canada, another wonderful lawyer with his team is basically fighting this, you know, crimes against humanity thing too, because they do not want the children to be experimented on, because that is exactly what it is. Why would you experiment on children that have literally zero chance of dying from that and do not spread it in schools? Why would you? They don't need it. It's too much of a risk. They don't have a risk of, you know, really being ill with the illness. So it just doesn't make any sense at all. But maybe this is being allowed to play out so that more people will wake up. That's the theory. I don't think it's really working. I shouldn't say it's not really working. It is. It is. Because there's people that are on kind of like they're older, but they just don't know where to go, or they don't know where the information is, or they don't have their friends or family, you know, speaking out. And, you know, I have to say that I'm at this point where, you know, if my friends and family want to know my opinion, I'll definitely tell them, but they're not asking me. And I know better than to impose it to them. Today, I kind of went, you know, all over my friend, so I apologize to her. Um, but I definitely was triggered, you know, seeing the kids in the mess. So what else? Oh yes, the UFOs. Let's get to the UFOs. How fun. Okay. So yes, so we were told, the conspiracy theorists, realists told us that they were going to fake an alien invasion with violence and everything like that to get people scared again. And by the way, there is evidence, actual DNA evidence, that you can actually suck energy from someone. So, and I've known this for quite a while because of my run-ins with the negative ETs, and there were a lot of positive ones as well. But I had to learn this lesson, and that if you're in that fear, okay, they can literally energetically vampire you. So that's why it's super, super important. Despite every red pilling thing that we're talking about today, don't get worried and down and upset. Just go, okay, all right, now what do we do, right? You know, it's like, let's move forward from this. Like let's make different decisions, and be in that vibration of love. Because if you can love all the crap that's happened, really, this is a really tough job for light warriors. Okay, but if you can love all of that, you don't prefer it, but even if you can be in the frequency of love throughout all of that, knowing all of that, then you have made a huge quantum jump and help us anchor in that brand new future reality of joy, peace, love, and harmony and prosperity for all. It is possible. It is possible. I know you're not told that it's possible, but it really is possible. It just requires enough people with that willpower, to understand, to resonate the love. But when you're in fear, you can get sucked dry. So we don't want to be in that space. But yes, there is a plan. Well, maybe was a plan. Now that we're like red pilling everybody, maybe they'll be like, ugh, can't do that one now, because people know we're gonna do it. So yeah, so on cue, the Pentagon, you know, released footage and said, yes, we admit we've had UFO craft that are non-human for quite some time now. And you're like, why are you telling us that now? Why hear you? They've done a great job. Hollywood and everybody have done a great job making us scared of aliens. And I have to say, I loved those scary movies. Okay, like Aliens, Sigourney Weaver. OMG, totally scary, right? But totally entertaining. It's addictive. You know, some of this fear stuff, right? So they've conditioned us to be scared of aliens. So if the agenda to control humanity is not working well because people being red pilled, right? They're going to try something else like out here, like, you know, that you don't expect. So yeah, we talked about the climate change. So yeah, they're going to be scary about that one. But it could be some sort of cosmic major event, right? They have movies on that too. So watch out for that. And also alien invasion. So here's the thing: is the footage they showed was actually human made. It was a human-made blimp. Yes, but it doesn't look like a UFO. They've been working on that for quite some time. Um, was one of our own, as Dr. Stephen Greer would say, and he's an MD, and he's been into the Disclosure Project for many, many years. He knows so many contacts in the military, and he's got whistleblowers. He's got the inside scoop on stuff. He warned us already. They will be a fake alien attack. So the aliens that he has been dealing with are all benevolent. And I won't say that all aliens are benevolent, because I've had my run-ins with clients and things like that where they're not benevolent, but there are benevolent ones out there. And are they helping out? Absolutely. But they cannot override free will. And there's a certain degree of prime directive that if there's enough of the people awake on the planet and we ask for help, you better believe it, they're going to be there. They've already neutralized a bunch of nuclear attacks that we could have annihilated ourselves many, many times before that, right? And they're nipped it in the bud. Oops, I can't push this nuclear button. What do I do, sir? Right? So yeah, so I don't think that we're going to go into nuclear war now. If if they do fake an alien invasion, I'd be curious to see where they do it. DC, the capital. It won't make for a very good video, though. I gotta tell you, they still got that thing all fenced up. There's all these weird buildings. The lights are off at 11. It's just very weird. Like nobody's there, but they're sort of there, and it really stinks there. Apparently, they're like flooding tunnels or something. I won't red pill you further. You can look it up. Yeah, so watch out for that. Watch out for the fake UFO invasion. And your job is just to go, right? And stay in stillness or humor or whatever you do. Dance, sing, watch funny movies, comedians. And feel good. Feel good. Because that's really important as you resonate that love vibration. The love can actually change not just your DNA, but DNA that's around you in a positive way. Hint, hint. Okay, so when you resonate love, powerful stuff. Yeah. Okay, last but not least, red pill. Maricopa County, Arizona. Wow, that is going to go down the history books. So some of you are like, what? Right? So my neighbor who's a patriot was like, I have no idea. So yes, they are recounting the ballots, but not just recounting, which apparently the first time they did it only took a few days, and now it's taken a long time because they're actually doing it forensically, right? The red pill people are saying, well, this is great news because the then president had already known that there was cheating in 2016, so they set up some sort of trap. So apparently there is a watermark, special watermark that the powers that be didn't know about. So if you have you don't have a watermark, and well, there's lots of things interesting, like how there's more people voting than there are in a particular state. How people from one state can vote in another state. But some of these names are like dead people. Well, that's a quality for you, right? But regardless, you'll find that out later. Okay. So right now it's just hearsay because they have not officially released all of that. Some unofficially they're released. But what has been officially released is that the Maricopa County folks didn't have the password to the voting machines. How could you not have the password to the administrative functions of your own voting machines? So you got to ask, who has the password? Right? So, during the audit, oh dear, all the data was erased from the machines. How did that happen? The results and tallying and reporting for the 2020 election was deleted? How convenient. Oh, forensic people know how to get that stuff back. But it's like, something's trying really hard to let us not look at this. So what's going to happen, or what's already happening, is you've got like missiles in Israel, right? And it's like, wow, now I appreciate, well, we actually did have 4 years of peace before this, right? So now you have this going on, right? And it's like, is this a and then riots, and then there's all these different things around. And some people, the red pill people, are like, hey, it's to distract you from the audit, because now other counties and other states are going, well, we're going to do that too. We're going to do an audit too. And that can be very, very scary if somebody did actually cheat. Not scary, there's nothing to hide, right? So you can just see from the actions of people and what people, oh, it's a waste of it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. I'm like, hello, our pharmaceutical companies are not liable for any injury for any of their jobs, and taxpayers are the ones that pay the injured. And that's in the tune of billions and billions of dollars. It's even, going through court, which takes a long time, right? So if you get somebody die, you could wait years for some sort of reparation. So yeah, I think most people in America, although you won't say that looking at the news and the numbers because they make stuff up. Yes, they do. And when you look at the numbers of people, or you feel into, it's a better word to say, feel into the numbers of people, most people actually want the truth. They really do. And if there's a truth and one guy, cheated, okay, now we know. If they didn't cheat, okay, we know, right? Why does somebody have to hire 1,000 lawyers to intimidate the people in Maricopa County to stop the audit? 1,000. Very suspicious. So let's do some TOLPAKAN healing now, because I may have riled you up somewhat, and obviously I was triggered myself up earlier today. So here's the thing: what we're going to do is we're going to increase and vibrate at the frequency of love. So what I'm going to have you do is actually close your eyes and feel your body and feel the energy rush in your body, even if you're having a negative emotion, right? If you're still with me, I was like, okay, all right, you were okay with being red pilled. Okay, so you're going to vibrate whatever your emotion is, good, bad, ugly. It doesn't really matter. Just vibrate it. But here's the thing: you are allowed to have an emotional reaction as a human. And the fastest, quickest way to get back to love is to feel your body in that reaction. So you can be sad 1 minute, feel the sadness in the body. Angry 1 minute, feel the anger in the body. Indignant or whatever, feel it in the body, right? And the minute you pay attention to the body, that emotion just goes and moves. So it's the stuck emotions that cause our problems. So we want to be in that space. So what I'm going to do is a TOLPAKAN healing directive for you right now to help you be in that space. Okay, here we go. So you can close your eyes, feel your body. Let me know in the comments below how it feels afterwards. Okay, what were you feeling before? What were you feeling after? So pay attention to your body. I now command that anything preventing you from fully resonating in the love field and the stillness field, including negative emotions, distractions, or any information, be healed and resolved in the highest and best way, all directions of time and all timelines where you exist. Go ahead and do grounding. And now command that you be grounded, always possible, physical, mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, dimensional, your ideal reality to the seventh plane, all your bodies and all parts of you, ease, speed, and grace, in the highest and best way, and all timelines where you exist. Thank you. All right, so open your eyes, take a breath, just feel how your body feels. I feel kind of like my legs are like heavier right now, like I went like that, and I feel calmer. So I don't know how you feel, but please post in the comments how this feels for your body. So some announcements. End here, number one, Light Warrior Radio Show. I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Mike Mew. And he is the founder and prime educator of orthotropics. What's orthotropics? Well, I didn't realize till very recently that the position of my tongue relative to the rest of my face has a dramatic impact on the shape of my face and also If you do mewing, which we're going to talk about on the show on Monday on the Light Warrior Radio, you can actually anti-age in a way. Like, this kind of stuff that hangs down and, our jaw tends to change shape over time. And people that are younger, especially, have very, very fluid and more flexible faces. And you can actually change someone's face shape and face structure. So can you imagine less orthodontic surgery if you knew how to do this, right? So we're going to talk about what is the ideal position of your tongue in your mouth, how to do mewing, or at least the beginning parts of it, and what that can do. Because here's the thing, you got multiple meridians that connect to your teeth and jaw, right? What would happen if you were in correct alignment there? It could positively affect the rest of your body, not just be like a anti-aging beauty thing, right? So join me on Monday, 12 noon Eastern, and I'll post the link near this video so you can click the link. And even if you can't make it live, you can click the link and listen to the archive show afterwards. So I'm super excited to ask Dr. Mew a whole bunch of questions about this. Yeah, it's super fun. The other announcement, I mentioned it last week as well. I did speak with the wonderful folks at Wealth Revolution, and we came to an agreement that we were going to keep my package A open for the divine design training and quantum jumping 1 and 2. It is like 50, whatever it is, 52, 55% off. And I agreed to keep it open because I think it's really, really important for people to understand how to get into that quantum field of that 0 point field where you can resonate the love, where you can then make a choice of what reality you wish to experience. And the more you pay attention to that future reality, that future ideal reality in the quantum jumping process, the more likely you are to anchor that in for all of us, right? So I have a vested interest in people knowing how to do that as well. And also we have some solutions to okay, and that's going to be, I won't even say the name here, but that is part of the quantum jumping second class. And so we're doing healing, we're doing training, and the divine design training, quantum jumping 1 and 2. Now the live class we recorded, that was package B. So now package A has all the classes together in a recorded format, and you're going to be able to radiate your own light radius to help and heal those around you just by being more you, just by being full of you. And there's more and more data talking about the amazingness of this. And I'm kind of a science nerd, so I just recently heard about some stuff from David Wilcock and his Gateway to Galactic Mind classes. And so I'll be sharing that in another, what I learned from him in another video at some point. But it's super, super exciting, and it just validated all of the work that I've been doing and sources been telling me. And so I just want you to know that you are loved, you are valuable, you are worthy. And thank you for sharing your time with me today. Until next time, bye for now.